Welcome back, everyone. In this video, we will continue exploring the Java's switch statement, looking into its functionalities, specifications, and specialties. To start, first of all, let's actually put our code back in such an order so as to not get ourselves confused. And let's actually cut this code, our first code that we developed from I won't cut it, and oops, there is something I did wrong. So let's actually cut the whole code from whole method from here. We're not gonna lose it because we might need it down the road, but we're gonna just paste it in the bottom of our class and we're gonna call it as needed. Okay, so we have our main method, we have our switching days method that has a good example of a switch statement. Now, when we looked at the syntax of the switch statement, we said that a switch block switch statement starts with the word switch. Then it takes in, instead of a condition, unlike if statement, instead of a condition, it takes a variable here that it's going to check for conditions. Then switch statements conditions are checked by cases. So case where day is equal to 1, case where day is equal to 2. We looked, etc. Then we looked at default. Default stands for if none of the cases apply, then the switch statement will flow down to default. We said that where you put these cases, where you put the default value doesn't matter, because switch statement will check for all the values, then move on to default value. If you have cases misplaced or randomized, switch statement will look at the value of the variable it is going to check for and find that case. If it doesn't find it, we'll go to default. So order doesn't matter. We just have it in order because it looks good this way. Now, this video, we will focus on the break statement. In the previous video, we hinted that break statement is very similar to our return statement with one major main difference. Return statement broke our method and got out of our whole method, whereas break statement within switch statement will only break the execution of the switch statement. So breaks area of enforcement is only limited to the switch block. Okay, breaks are optional. However, when you do not use breaks in the necessary places, when you forget to use breaks, then you might have unexpected consequences. Just to demonstrate to you what's happening is, let's, for example, when we're testing for 7, let's add here 7. Let's run this program. And when we have the switch statement, when we're testing for a value of a day being 7, we get a Sunday. Let's comment out all the breaks before 7. Right? Then run it. Obviously, this was optional. However, let's test for value 2. Value 2 is supposed to return Tuesday, correct? Run this program. Look at what happens. It returns Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. All of them. So what happens is break is actually it controls the flow. If in the switch statement, if your case 2 becomes true, right? So we came here, we passed in value 2. So this case became true. After this case, we printed out Tuesday, right? And then we moved on until we found a break. So we executed all the cases until we found a break. That's why it's important to understand how break works and use it accordingly. Let's actually switch the places of 1 and 2. So basically, let's add case 1 after case 2. Let's see what happens now. If we still keep the value as 2, now case 2 is true, right? So this statement will be executed, and all the other statements that are going to be executed until the switch statement reaches break. So this is why break is important. If we have break activated for case where it's equal to 1, we're just going to print Tuesday and Monday. So this is why break is important. However, if you know what you're doing, break statement can actually be very useful. So let's test for a case where we're gonna test for only whether it's a weekday or not. So let's copy this switch block here, and before we do so, let's bring the code back up to its original, because when you break something, you want to make sure you fix it back and you want to test it before you move on, right? So when I pass in 2, it prints out Tuesday only because I put all my breaks back. So let's copy this code now and minimize this method here, and let's create a new method, public static void weekday. Let's do this, weekday weekend into day, a similar signature. So this method is going to check whether the case that the value that I'm gonna pass in is going to be a weekday or a weekend. So is Monday a weekday? Yes, it is. So I'll just delete this because I don't need Monday to be printed out. Do I need break here? No, I do not. Case 2, is Tuesday a weekday? Yes, it is. Do I need a break here? No, I do not. Is Wednesday a weekday? Yes, it is. Thursday is a weekday. Yes, it is. And Friday is a weekday. Now here, I'm going to put weekday and I'm going to break. So what will happen is, if you remember from the previous time, from our previous example, and let me take care of my indentation, make sure you take care of your indentation to make it easy for you to read your code. So if you remember from our previous experiment with removing breaks, we found out that if you do not have a break between cases, those cases will be executed. All of these cases will be executed until the switch statement reaches a break. So what we did in this case, we actually used upon our knowledge from our previous mistake, right? We learned our lesson and we actually removed break statements intentionally this time, because we know that Monday is a weekday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday are weekdays, and we just put a break after Friday. So when I put any one of these days, it will print out a weekday for me, right? So case 6, is Saturday a weekend? Yes, it is. So I do not need, and since Sunday is going to be a weekend too, I do not need a break after Saturday, right? So I'm just gonna, instead of Sunday, I'm gonna put here weekend. Then I'm gonna break. Any other entry of any other number entry by the user is going to be returning not a weekday. Okay, so now let's call this method, then our new method called weekday weekend, and this is autofilled by the Eclipse. So when I pass in 2 to my new method, what is it supposed to print? It's supposed to print weekday, because 2 stands for Tuesday. Tuesday is a weekday. Let me actually call our previous method as well and pass in the same values here. So 2 is a Tuesday and 2 is a weekday. Run the program, you're gonna get Tuesday coming in from switching days method and one weekday coming in from weekday weekend method, right? Now, if I pass in 7, I'm supposed to get Sunday on switching days, and I'm supposed to get weekend on the weekday weekend method. Run it, we get exactly that, correct? So this is how, and if I pass in any other value that is actually not a weekday, neither a weekend, then I will get both methods will return not a weekday. So this is a demonstration of how you can intentionally manipulate the break statement to work it for your own benefit. Now, before we move on, let me also demonstrate you that default statement is also optional. However, if there is no default statement, simply put, your switch statement will not do anything. So it will come here, it will look for a day 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all of them checked. There is no day 0 amongst them, and I do not have any default case. That's why I'm just going to exit my switch statement, and that's it. I will not print anything. Default is optional. Default is encouraged to be put so as to check for all the other cases. This is about it, about when it comes to using breaks. Make sure when you eliminate breaks in certain places, make sure you do that intentionally. Test your code every single time when you do it, make a change, when you add a condition or when you remove a condition, and this is mostly about it. In the next video, we will look at certain rules that apply that we have to watch out for when we're using switch statements. Also, we're going to look into certain limitations. I'm looking forward to seeing you all there. Thank you.